supporters of Dave's Tackle Box.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Dave's Tackle Box on this Sunday, the 11th of May 2014. On tonight's show, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of topical discussions that have been going on during the week. One is about Dr. Farsalinos' flavour study, and there was we've only got a little bit of information on that, but we've got sort of his comments on the preliminary findings. I'll be running through those. We're also going to be joined somewhat briefly by Slim, aka Simon, who heralds as Slim UKV on the UKV forum, and he's very involved in the EFVI dodo boxes, so he'll be along a little bit later to tell us what he's up to and what the next step is with the dodo boxes, so that'll be good. I've got a couple of other bits and bobs, and if there's any time left at the end, another Dave K legendary juice review, probably. But we'll start as normal with the titles. Let's get this show on the road. And away we go. Right. Okay, now you might recall, if you were watching my show last week, you'll recall I had Dave Dawn on the show, and we were talking about getting together in Basel. Dave was over in Basel during the week for a harm reduction conference. And because I work it's about an hour's train ride from where he was, I said, I'll come round, we'll meet up. So we did. Now, sadly, there's no VT of this. Which in some ways is probably a good thing. But I did indeed meet Dave in Basel on last Wednesday night, and it was good. And we went to the only restaurant I know in Basel. And I've been in there before, but with two non-smoking, no vaping friends, and I was very discreet about the way I was vaping. But this time I was with Dave, and it was quite interesting actually. We ended up having a lengthy chat with one of the waitresses who wanted to know where she could get an e-cig and all the rest of it. So it was good fun. And the beer, I have to say, was excellent. It's like perhaps the nicest beer I've ever drunk. Brewed on site. And it was damn good. But yes, so Dave was travelling around like the proverbial blue arse fly last week. So that's why he wasn't around on Thursday. And he's having a well-deserved night off tonight. So I'm afraid you're stuck with me. But I thought I'd give you a little update because we said we were going to meet up, and we did, and it was good. So there you go. But one of the main things that we were talking about last week on my show was travelling with e-cig gear. And you may recall that I mentioned that I'd never been asked about my e-liquid. I take a bottle like this in my carry-on, normally full, obviously. In a little see-through sealable bag, the way you're supposed to do it. And I'd never been queried up until the trip before last week's show, so that's 2 weeks ago tomorrow, remains the one and only time that anybody's actually looked at the juice. And I wasn't asked any questions about it, but you remember I described the guy took the bottle, opened it, got a little pipette and dripped something onto some kind of, it looked like blotting paper, but it was obviously some kind of litmus test or something he was doing. And I was quite surprised by that, because it's the only time it ever happened. So, but coincidentally, a story popped up in midweek in the Times, in their science section. And I just thought I'd mention it, just because it kind of sort of followed on from what we were talking about last week. I'll see if I can find the correct shot. There it is. This is the Times. The story's dated the 6th of May. So they're actually going to be introducing, it's not a purely e-cig related thing this, but they're actually introducing some kind of fancy scanner in British airports apparently, which will be able to analyse your liquid without even removing it from the bag, which I thought was quite clever. And I think the idea is it's designed to actually speed the process up, so if something looks a bit odd, they don't have to actually unpack it and do what they did with me, I guess. So it says here that the new scanners will analyse the contents of bottles without opening them, and they're being tested and could lead to larger quantities of liquid being allowed in bags carried into cabins. So that's a good thing, isn't it? That, as I say, that story's in the Times if you're interested. I just thought I'd mention it because it was kind of followed on from where we were. So I think that's a good thing, because you're limited at the moment. You're not allowed to take an individual bottle over 100ml. And, if you're going away for a couple of weeks, you might want to take a bit more liquid in a bottle. I don't know. But there you go. Thought I'd mention that. But that was an aside. Now on to a proper news story from this week. And this one comes care of EFVI, the Electronic Cigarette Industry Trade Association. And I actually spotted this one via a post on UK Vapors. I can't even remember who posted it, so I do apologise. But we've covered, as it's happened on this station a couple of times, that various sort of transport authorities and public bodies seem to be banning vaping, and with very, very sort of tenuous reasoning behind the bans, And one of the earliest transport companies that I can recall was ScotRail. They came out and announced, no, you can't vape on trains anymore. And there's a bit of a kickback from EFVI here. This was published on the 7th of May, and I'm going to read it to you because I think I want to see more of this kind of thing, and I'll be interested as I'm reading through this if anybody in chat's got any thoughts on this kind of thing. We've got to bear in mind that ScotRail, it's their trains, they can do what they like, but you'll get the gist as I read through this. This is an open letter to UK rail service providers, and it actually says, we've written to ScotRail following passenger complaints about their prohibiting the use of electronic cigarettes on their rail services. In the absence of any legal requirement in national law or in the railway bylaws, we felt we had to write to ScotRail to point this out. This would, of course, equally apply to any and all other rail operators who may be under the illusion that there is some legal requirement to oppress their vaping customers by suggesting that they cannot use the products on their railways. As you will see in our letter, this in itself violates one of the railway bylaws, so it will be interesting to see what response, if any, we receive. Since ScotRail are part of the growing trend of rail operators to take this draconian step, we hope that others will read and rethink their policies on this issue. So, it sounds good so far, doesn't it? I'll now read the letter, and this is all. What was the terminology they used? To all UK rail service operators. This is what the open letter says. Dear Sir or Madam, it has been brought to our attention that an announcement was made on a rail service to the effect that the use of e-cigs was banned on the train as a, in inverted commas, legal requirement. Furthermore, in response to an email of complaint from a ScotRail customer published in part on the Rail UK forum, ScotRail stated, "We have taken legal advice on this matter and believe we are within our rights to exclude e-cigarettes under the existing railway bylaw that refers to a lighted item. The bylaw does not require the nature of the lighting to be an actual flame. In addition, the definition of cigarette in the bylaw is not restricted to a classic tobacco cigarette, but covers any cigarette. There is no reference, in fact, to tobacco in the bylaw itself. Let's just take a pause there. So what ScotRail are saying there is that, okay, cigarettes are banned. And because electronic cigarette has cigarette in the title, it should be banned too. But the funniest bit is they're claiming now that the non-smoking laws, I know you said anti-smoking then, that was Freudian, wasn't it? The non-smoking laws refer to lit, lighting up. And they're now saying because an e-cigarette lights up at the end, that therefore it is lit. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe some stupid lawyer did that, came to that sort of conclusion, but I suspect not. That sounds to me like trying to twist the bylaw to fit their agenda, doesn't it, really? But anyway, let's look at what ECITA have got to say about that. It says, we do not believe that this is the case, since the railway bylaws clearly state that no person shall smoke or carry a lighted pipe, cigar, cigarette, match, lighter or other lighted item on any part of the railway on or near which there is a notice indicating that smoking is not allowed. We would suggest that there is a clear inference that lighted in this context is a direct reference to the past tense of the verb to ignite or to cause to ignite, rather than the verb to illuminate or cause to illuminate. For the simpletons like me and you, that means that bylaw is referring to setting stuff on fire, not turning on a torch. Just thought it goes on like that. It's worth a read. This is it's on ecita.org.uk's blog, and it's well worth a read. But I think it's nice to see somebody actually kick back on this, and it's worth pointing out that it goes on to point out that that it's. I'll read it verbatim. It says, of course, any rail operator has the right to decide what their policies shall and shall not include. However, in the context of the railway bylaws, which are prescribed standards that railway staff and passengers can reasonably expect to be upheld, unless such bylaws are overridden by national laws, it would seem that rail operators are not entitled to willfully interfere with the comfort or convenience of any person on the railway by requiring them to desist from using their electronic cigarette if they so wish. Since no national law has been passed banning the use of electronic cigarettes in public places, then not only is it demonstrably not the case that the banning of electronic cigarettes on rail services is a legal requirement, it is in direct contravention of the existing railway bylaws. And they go on to point out that ASH have recently stated that ASH supports regulation to ensure the safety and reliability of e-cigarettes, but in the absence of harm to bystanders does not consider it appropriate to include e-cigarettes under smoke-free regulations. And the fact that electronic cigarettes look similar to conventional cigarettes has been said to risk confusion as to their use in public places, such as on public transport. However, given that the most distinctive feature of cigarette smoking is the smell of the smoke, which travels rapidly, and that this is absent from electronic cigarette use, it's not clear how any such confusion would be sustained. So there is Ash saying what we've been saying on VTTV for years now, you can't mistake an e-cig for a real cigarette, can you? Maybe we should try using something like this. This one doesn't light up. No, well, not if you put your thumb over the button. So, but I just want to say well done to ECITA, because somebody needed to say something to these buggers, and if Kath is watching this par chance or gets wind of this, can we write them to other organisations as well? that are sort of banning. Can we write such a letter to things like Weatherspoons, for example, and the other pub and restaurant chains that have said, oh, that we don't want people vaping in there because it's too hard for the staff to tell the difference? That'd be good. I just got a couple of comments being fed back to me from chat there as well. Vaping Juggler saying, oh my, transport companies don't even know their own small print. Sounds like the EU legislation forming process, doesn't it just? Doesn't it just? Although I rather suspect in this case here with ScotRail, that I don't think it's the case of them not understanding it. On case of them thinking, we don't want people doing this. So how can we interpret the bylaws that we've got? I think it's a bit more sinister than being stupid, to be honest. And Scottaloo is saying the rule is silly. If the trains don't want vaping, then fine. But trying to say vaping is smoking isn't fair. Spot on. Their trains, their rules. We've often said that on VTTV, haven't we? Your house, your rules. But to try and pass it off as something that the law... It's avoiding taking responsibility for the decision, isn't it? Because they know they're on dodgy ground. So if they think they can pass it off as being required by the law, then it gets them off the hook. And there's something kind of slimy about that, don't you think? So ScotRail, if you watch this, sort it out. I think that's fair. So yes, e-cigs, well done. Thank you for pointing out the obvious. I'll be watching that blog because I'm sure if they get a reply, I'm sure we'll get to see it. And it's worth just a quick mention while we're on there. This is an excellent blog. I know it's a trade association blog, but the articles tend to be written by people that we know, people who vape, people who have the same opinions on most of the issues that we're facing these days. It's well worth a look at ecigs.org.uk/blog, and there's all kinds of stuff in there. I find it I sometimes find it very heartening to know that there's an organisation who've, if you pardon the French, have got their shit together and they're on our side. So well done, e-cigs, and thank you for that. Now, we're going to take a short break now because it's that time. And when I come back, hopefully I will have my guest for the evening, Slim, to talk about EFVI and particularly about the dodo boxes. And I won't preempt too much. I'll go into the first break. I'll see you in a minute, hopefully with Slim.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box. Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
And welcome back. And as promised, here's Slim. Hi, Slim.
Evening, Dave. Evening, everybody. Well, there's nobody watching, Dave, I presume, so it's just me and you, is it?
We've got 137 in chat, and it's ticking up slowly. So there's a few people watching. Yeah. So
They can't have come online to watch me again.
So, well, you never know. I think the Britain's Got Talent final starts soon or something on a Sunday night. Then that's when the numbers drop.
Good to know.
Sorry, I was just reading a comment from the backroom team there. I'll come back to that one after this. Slim, I've invited you along tonight. You actually sent me a PM through the UK Vapers Forum the other day, didn't you? To make sure I knew about the latest EFVI campaign. But before we get into that, I want you to just give us a recap. What is EFVI? I don't think there'll be many people watching this who don't already know, but let's invest a few seconds in that. What's EFVI?
Oh gosh, now the pressure's on. I'm going to have to get this right now. So the European Free Vaping Initiative started as of November last year. We've got 12 months in order to collect 1 million EU signatures.
Right, and if we achieve that 1 million signatures, and it's not quite that simple, is it? Each country has a quota depending on the size of their population. So each country has to hit its quota, should I say, and the total has to be 1 million. So it's a pretty big ask.
It's an enormous task, because even the quotas themselves don't add up to the million. So several countries have got to go way, way, way beyond their quotas.
Well, a little bit later, I'm going to pop up the latest stats and what have you on the EFVI site that's monitoring everything there, all the signatures that you're capturing. But the prize here, if we can achieve it, is that we get our day at the EU to make our case for more sensible rules and regulation for e-cigs, pretty much. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it is. As I understand it, a delegation from the EFVI will be allowed to go along, make their case, and at least it's done in public, unlike a lot of what's gone on.
Yes.
And the EU commissioners, if I've got that right, will have to at least formally accept our proposition, let's put it that way, and formally respond.
Right.
There is no guarantee, I'm sure everybody knows. Even 1 million signatures does not guarantee anything happens, but at least they have to respond.
In short, it's our last chance with the EU. It's our last remaining opportunity to be heard.
One would think so.
Right. Now, you mentioned there just how difficult it is. Even if each country gets its quota, we still need a few more beyond that. Right, we've got to get the message to people so they'll give us their signatures on this, yeah? Right, and
yeah,
you are...
Sorry? I think education on this one. We all scratch our heads on the forum. We're all familiar with the numbers out there. Are we 2 million? Are we 700,000 full-time vapors? Who knows? And we will scratch our heads wondering why it's difficult to find 55,000. Well, often it's difficult because there are a lot of vapors, unbelievably, who still don't know anything about this.
Absolutely, and I know that, I see that, because I know vapors, people in the street who come round to borrow an atomizer because the one they bought 6 weeks ago seems to be broken. And you mention it and they have no clue what you're on about. But that's where the idea of the dodo box comes in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about the dodo box.
I took a trip down to a couple of local stores when we were trying to figure all of this out, and they were heaving. They were manic. And yet I stood there and I watched them come in, I watched them buy their juice, and I watched them walk out. And I just thought every single one of those guys would happily sign if they only knew about it and if they had an easy method to actually sign up.
Right. So you basically came up with the idea of the dodo box. Why a dodo?
Because we don't want to become extinct.
Fantastic. The simple answers are always the best ones. Okay, so you basically you did a bit of fundraising. You bought a bunch of these dodo boxes. Do you know what? I haven't actually seen one yet in the flesh. but that's because I don't go anywhere interesting. But I've seen pictures of them, and I've seen footage of them. I've seen vendors publicising the fact that they've got them. So it's clearly had an impact. But basically, they all got given out, and you've run out, I think, is the upshot, isn't it?
Well, you're not the only one who hasn't got one, Dave, because not even I've got one now.
So they're all out there doing what they were intended to do, and that's a good thing, right?
Exactly. I'd rather have my box out in a shop collecting signatures than sitting here collecting dust. So,
yeah, fair comment.
You should have one, by the way, because I gave Dave Dawn one and told him explicitly to get you one. But there you go.
That'll be the one he gave to that corner shop, I bet you.
Yeah, probably.
and as you said, it's better that it's out there working than being sat on my desk, I guess. Okay, that's brilliant. But basically, you need some more boxes, I think, to cut a long story short.
Yeah, to cut a long story short, we ordered 500, thinking that was a mental number and we would never get rid of them all, and they all went within 2 weeks.
Brilliant. And to that end, you're behind another fundraising drive. So all the time we've been talking here, there's a little banner with a picture of a dodo and a big PayPal donate now button. But tip viewers, don't click the video screen; it won't work. Okay. But if I put Slim here, I'll put Slim up on screen like this. And I've got a little lower third here with an email address on it. You need to be going to www.efvi-uk/donations. Get yourself to there, and that will take you to a web page like this. And on this web page, you can click the link to go off to PayPal and pay. I did it earlier. It's easy peasy, and there's a running total of how much has been raised. So as of 9 o'clock, that's what, half an hour ago tonight, we've raised 1275 quid near us, damn it. So I know when you emailed me the other day, that was only about 600 quid, wasn't it?
It was.
So that shot up a bit in the last couple of days.
Well, it's only been running since 12 o'clock yesterday. So we're only a little bit more than 18 hours old, and that's 1,200 quid. Excellent.
So what's that? That's like 60% of the way there.
Yes.
Ish.
Because I haven't done percentage.
Oh yeah. No, nobody will challenge it. Statistics, just make them up.
63.2, he says. Fucking something out of the air.
It impressed me anyway. I bought it. You're all right. So okay. So what we need is £2,000 to buy the next batch. Okay. If that gets you 1,000 boxes, and to get them to people. And I'm just reading from your webpage now. I'll flash it up so everybody else can see what I'm looking at. That if they can hit 2,000 quid, that's going to buy 1,000 more boxes to go in retailers' premises. Postage and packing, because these things have got to get in and then out again to where they're going. And various promotional related cards, posters and literature. So if you overrun the £2,000, and it looks like that you could do, that's all good, is it? You'll find something Dodo related to spend it on, I guess.
We can always spend it on, business cards for the online vendors to include in their sales, bigger and better posters, I should say, for the shops with the boxes. We're not going to have any problem spending it.
Right, excellent. So everybody, I did it earlier. It took me about a minute of my time. Okay, you click that button. I'll just flash up the lower third again for anybody that needs to see it. www.efvi-uk/donations. You'll be confronted with the graphic that you can now see on this screen with the big PayPal button in the middle. I know it's like that one because that's where I nicked it from. Click the PayPal button. Enter your PayPal name and address and the amount you want to donate. £2.50 sounds like a reasonable minimum to me. I think most vapers can afford £2.50. What's that?
£2.50 gets us pretty much one box and pretty much covers the postage. And, there's every chance that a single box is going to get at least 100 signatures over the next few months, and that's more than I could personally get.
Fantastic. Right, I know you've got to be somewhere. I just want to say, because that was quite hastily arranged getting you on tonight, so I want to say thanks very much for coming and joining us. I'll be keeping tabs on this figure. Let's see if it goes up any during the course of the show. That'd be nice. And it looks like you're well on your way, but let's hope you get enough that you can get as many boxes out there as people are asking for. That'd be the first target, wouldn't it?
Thank you. You've gone green screen on me now, Dave. I'm going to.
That's all right. You're looking fine. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're well on the way to being able to order the actual boxes. Obviously, the money beyond there just really helps us with the shipping costs and all that sort of stuff. So it's looking very much like we're going to do it, and we'll get the next batch hopefully out in the shops in a couple of weeks' time.
Excellent. Just one thing I should mention before you go: it's not just yourself working on this, is it? You've got support and help from people.
A massive amount. I mean,
do you want to give a shout out to a handful? Feel free.
I would take up the rest of the program if I thanked everybody. You know, there's Alan Beard, Andy Oakley, Chris doing the map for us, every one of the regional controllers. But you know what? More importantly, though, Dave, the people in the shops are really doing the work here.
Excellent. That's a good message. That's a good message.
Yeah, they really are, because they are putting a massive amount of effort in getting those signatures, and then many of them are banging those in for us every single day.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy, though. If you didn't make it easy to get those boxes, then they wouldn't be doing that work as efficiently. So I'm not going to let you give up all the credit for that. So.
Well, we're just enablers. Dave, could I just... I think one massive shout out this week needs to go to Liberty Flights, who put in around about 1,000 signatures across 2 days.
Wow. It's funny you should say that, actually. It didn't occur to me to mention it, but I'm on their mailing list, and they're sending out, I think it's like weekly updates on the EFVI campaign. They're trying to get like a competitive sort of spirit going and everything. And yeah, well done to them. You know, fair play to them. Excellent.
To them and to Tom Forshaw, who I've been in contact with, and you know, as far as I understand it, we tied up about 3 of their staff for 2 days solid this week, just putting in those signatures, and you know, they notched us up almost 2%, I think, on their own.
That's good. That is good to see the vendors sort of supporting and weighing in and helping. That's a great message.
Yeah. Can't ask any more from them, and I know that some of the other vendors are looking at them and challenging themselves to try and beat those numbers.
Fantastic. Right, I know you've got to get off, so I'm going to let you go. There's a video appeared, hasn't there? A video appeared on YouTube.
Fantastic. Appeared, I think I first saw of it yesterday, maybe, was it? And yeah, we've got a lovely little plug on the end of it. He's even now redone it with some subtitles, which is very suitable for running in a shop as a promo.
Excellent. Yeah, I think so as well, and we're going to take a look at it now while I disconnect you. So don't feel sort of like you're being mistreated here, but there'll be no ceremony whatsoever. The video will start and you'll disappear.
Excellent. Well,
so if you want to say goodbye to the viewers, now's a good time. If you want a last word, take it.
Thanks very much, Dave. And if you can spare £2.50, then it's going to be gratefully received.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Slim.
Cheers, Dave.
Take it easy.
If somebody came up with a cure for cancer, the government wouldn't try to ban it, would they? They wouldn't introduce laws that allow big tobacco to make both the cause and the cure. They wouldn't bow to pressure from the pharmaceutical industry just because their drugs don't work and they're losing money. They wouldn't care more about the taxes taken from smokers than smokers' health. Because your government cares about public health, right? Electronic cigarettes may not be a cure for cancer, but what they provide for many is a choice. A choice to walk away from inhaling the tar and carbon monoxide in burnt tobacco to move to a far safer alternative. Vaping is a choice. A choice that could save millions of lives. Don't let them destroy our right to choose. Don't let them legislate e-cigs out of existence.
The European Free Vaping Initiative. If you want to help, what is we went all through that piece, and we didn't actually this campaign to raise this latest 2,000 quid has a name. It's called the Donate campaign, which I think is genius. But I know I'm easily pleased, but I think it's genius. Here's the URL again. It's sort of down there. EFVI-UK/donations. If you can donate £2.50, you basically fund a box. It's that simple. I'm just going to pick up on a couple of comments that have been fed to me via chat. I'll leave the URL up there where we're doing it. First comment was from Alan Fletcher during our piece talking about the ScotRail letter from e-cigs, saying that cigar likes have got us into this mess. And I think to a large degree, I think you're right. Quite what we do about it, I actually don't know. I think if you're planning on using an e-cig on a train or on a plane, or if you did, then yes, I think using a cigar like's a bad idea. I agree. On the subject of the EFVI and the dodo boxes, there's a comment from Maxstrom. He's saying that unfortunately a lot of people I know, to quote, because I don't know if it's a he or a she, Max. So, unfortunately, a lot of people I know just refuse to fill the forms in to the dodo box. I just don't get it. I've got nothing to add to that. I don't get it either. It doesn't take long to fill a form in, does it? You know, just do it. A question, which are two questions, in fact, one from Mark Hamburg, and one from Whip It Up 69, and I don't know the answer to either. I suspect I know the answer to the first one from Mark. Is PayPal the only way to donate? Yes, I believe it is the only way to donate, but the best thing to do if you're unsure is go to the website here, EFVI-UK, and there's a contact link. So if you put your question there, I'm sure the guys will sort you out. I don't know whether they'll take a check through the post or something like that. That's possible. And Whip It Up's question, are dodo boxes just in the UK? And again, I'm not 100% sure on that. So I would recommend the same course of action. EFVI-UK. Use the contact link and ask the question there. And if you feed the answer back to me, I'll do an update in a future show. So... I suppose this is a good time, isn't it, to just take a quick peek at the EFVI latest stats. So we'll do that. Because when the EFVI thing kicked off initially, we were looking at this quite regularly. And haven't looked at it too recently. So let's get this up on screen. This is, I find this interesting actually. This is monwiki.fr. /EFVI, and there's all kinds of stats. I've just had an update there saying that the boxes are in Germany and France so far. So there you go. There's a partial answer to one of the questions. It's called the Pitbull box in Germany. I like that. Yes, this website is definitely worth a visit if you're interested in how it's going. It shows you what the quotas are, which countries of how many statements they're referred to on here have been collected, and there's a total there of 85,000 out of the million. So there's still a long way to go, and that's why it's important that we support this. There's some nice little sort of league table kind of things which show it shows quite well actually. You know, you take a country like Latvia and their quota that they have to meet is only 6,750, whereas for example in Germany they've got to make 74,250 because it's pro rata to the population size. And this shows which countries are doing well, meeting their quotas, and which ones not so well. So as the process goes through, I guess there has to be a concerted effort to enlighten those countries that are not keeping up, basically. Because if I just flick back to this, and I don't want to shame anybody because that's not my place to do it, but if I remove this, there we go. You can see there, for example, Bulgaria, Latvia have only achieved about 0.5% of their quotas, whereas in Finland they've achieved 50%. We in the UK 37%. But we need to get 100% in all of those and then some, as Slim was explaining. So this ain't done. It ain't over. It ain't old news. We got to do it. Donate, make a noise, join Twitter, keep banging on about it, and let's see if we can't give this every chance of succeeding. Right, it's time already. I can't believe how fast the time is flying tonight, and there's one more story that I really want to cover tonight, and that's the Dr. Farsalinos comments on the flavour study. So we're going to take the break now, and as soon as we come back we'll get into that. So I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
iVapor and iVapor Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's ivapor.co.uk and ivapor-elixir.co.uk. iVapor and ivapor-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of vaportrails.tv.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
And welcome back again. We're into the last half, the third half, as Dave Dawn would call it. Right. I just want to actually, before I get on to the Dr. Farsalinos thing, I just want to add a couple of comments because they've been coming in via Sav and Kat, who are really helping me out tonight. Comments that probably come from chat, saying we've got the pitbull box in Germany, and France's are going to Luxembourg and Belgium too. So it's happening. It's being pushed out to the other EU member states, so that's good stuff. Now, Dr. Farsalinos, let me flick this web page up. You might recall in January of this year that every vapor's favourite scientist, Dr. Konstantinos Farsalinos, announced, sort of in partnership, and I'll make sure the credit goes where it's due here, Dimitri from Vape Team and for VP Live announced that they were teaming up with Dr. Farsalinos to kick off a flavour study. So if you were vaping in January this year, you remembered this. This was a request basically for money so that Dr. Farsalinos could do some actual proper analysis of e-liquids on the market. And behind all of this, there was an undertone that suggested he suspected there was something in these juices that shouldn't be there. We've all speculated amongst ourselves over the last few months as to what he was looking for. And I think many of us guessed it right, but without preempting too much. The campaign closed to raise the money closed on the 14th of February. And here we are on the 11th of May. And a few days ago, Dr. Farsalinos did a short interview with Dimitri on VP Live. And I'm going to flash up another web page here. I don't actually have the recording. And there's a simple reason for that, and that's because I couldn't get hold of Dimitris this afternoon to check with him that it was okay to use his material. So what I'm going to do is summarise what goes on in there and show you where you can find it, because I don't want to plagiarise. If you go to vaporsplace.com, there's a link here in the banner at the top that says show schedule and replays. If you select that, you're looking for a show down here, and it's, as this episode goes out, it's the second one from the top, called Smoke Free Radio Episode 3. If you load that up, it plays as a SoundCloud audio recording of the radio show, and if to make it easy for you, it's the last sort of 20 minutes-ish of the show that you want to listen to if you want to hear Dr. F. Now, I listened to it earlier. I had a notepad with me, and it made for very interesting listening. So I'm going to summarise. The first thing that I want to say is that Dr. F was saying that they've done all the results. Okay, so the actual study and the analysis part of this little project has been completed, and they're about ready to make a preliminary announcement on the findings. The full study won't be published for about another month or so, because I guess it has to be typed up and signed off and peer reviewed and whatever they do with these things. I'm not a scientist. But what I've got here are some of the highlights of what Dr. F was saying. They tested 159 flavours, and from what was described as all over the world. So they went to small vendors, big vendors, medium-sized vendors, bought these juices anonymously, so there was no way that the results of the analysis could be influenced. They bought them, 159 flavours, and studied them, and as many of us suspected, it seems that the thing they were looking for was diacetyl. Now, to cut a long story short, and you should definitely listen to that thing after the show to hear Dr. F talk about it in much more detail and with much more competence than I can. He was saying that 69% of the 159 samples contained diacetyl, or another chemical, which is a new one to me, called acetyl, and I'll see if I can... Propionyl. Okay, I had to look this up to get the spelling and everything. It's acetyl and then Propionyl. Now, the story is, in 2010, I started vaping in 2010, and there was a story about diacetyl not being a great ingredient for e-liquids. Diacetyl gives you what is described... It gives the flavour of, if you like, custardy notes. And the reason I became aware of it in actual fact was I was looking for some dulce de leche to make some RY4. And I was warned by somebody I respect gratefully in the e-liquid business. He warned me to check that there was no diacetyl in it, because that's not a good thing. And I looked into what diacetyl possibly does. And I'll come back to in a few minutes to that, because there's a discussion about that. Now, it turns out that in 2010, everybody thought diacetyl a bad thing. So they went back to the flavour manufacturers and said, we can't have diacetyl for this. Take the diacetyl out. But what nobody seems to have realised is that this acetyl propionyl has been used as a substitute for diacetyl. And in lab rat tests, it seems as though it causes exactly the same potential health issues as diacetyl. Don't want to alarm anybody on this, right? I think Dr. F said when this first kicked off that, people shouldn't panic over this. But it's just, he talks in the radio interview with Dimitri, he talks about, that obviously it's a lot safer than smoking, but it's a risk, and it's a preventable risk, so people should look at this. as I say, I had to go looking to find out what this new chemical that I'd never heard of before was, and I just simply Googled and came across this study, and they're talking about respiratory cytotoxicity of inhaled 2,3-pentanedione, and with my utmost apologies for the pronunciation, in rats. And basically, to cut a long story short, this summary is saying that that it's the same as diacetyl. Now, I said I would talk about the threat, if you like, the issue with diacetyl. There's a suggestion that diacetyl can cause a condition called popcorn lung, which is a bad thing. It's a non-reversible lung condition that was detected in people handling large volumes of diacetyl through inhalation. So people working in factories and what have you using the stuff. Now, that said, I got into a long-winded debate a long time ago on the UK Vapers Forum with people who said to me, actually, the evidence isn't that clear-cut that it is harmful. Personally, I am of the view that if doctors, particularly cardiorespiratory experts like Dr. Farsalinos, are saying that it shouldn't be in our e-liquid, then that's who I'm siding with. So I've long since checked that diacetyl isn't in any e-liquid I use, but I'd never heard of this other thing. And Dr. F is suggesting that perhaps what happened in 2010, the vendors would have gone to the suppliers and manufacturers and said we don't want diacetyl, and not realised that this replacement ingredient isn't really desirable either. So like I say, I would definitely encourage you to listen to that piece for yourself. Vaporsplace.com, on the schedule. It's Smoke Free Radio episode 3, the last 20 minutes of it. Listen to it for yourself. I'm really looking forward to the full report coming out to see what the suggestion is. Currently, there's no plan that I know of. I didn't detect anything in what I've been reading and looking at. There's no intention to name the suppliers, which I think I'm right in saying Dr. F said from the beginning, actually, that wasn't going to happen. He's not going to create any kind of witch hunt. But I think any vendors watching this, let's get out there now. We know people have been checking there's no diacetyl in the juices you're selling, but have we been checking for acetyl propionyl? Propionyl, I think, is the... Because with Dr. F's accent, I thought he was saying propanol for a while, but it's propionyl. So, but, I think, we need to make sure that stuff is not necessarily banned, but labelled. So people know, because I've had a look at a bunch of juice bottles, and again, I'm not going to name any names, but I've got juice bottles from most of the UK vendors around here, and I can't find this mentioned on any labels. So I think that's the lesson to come from there. Just Dr. F said he's putting this information out there, and he actually used the phrase that he's sure that the vaping industry will resolve it. That's his words, and I tend to agree. There's a suggestion that the timing of this is not helpful, with so much talk about. We all know that politicians are saying things like we don't know what's in them, and at one level, I think this report gives credence to that. But we've still got to do it. That to me that's regrettable. The fact that it might give some anti-e-cig bodies some ammunition. That's just an unavoidable consequence of something that needed to be done and that I wanted to know, frankly. So so I still support this as an idea. I'm happy that the community funded this, because we all know vendors put into this, probably manufacturers, and lots of vapors like you and me donated to that study. and I think it's something that we've done well to achieve as a community, to be honest. So I say thanks to Dr. F. Whatever that, no doubt when this report is published properly, that there'll be loads of debate. I'm just going to read out a quote here from Stefan Didak, which has been relayed to me. It says, the problem is we should pressure flavour manufacturers to be more open and honest. However, their products as used for inhalation purposes is only a tiny, tiny fraction of their market. So their financial incentive isn't there. That's a good point, because most of the flavour manufacturers, they're manufacturing flavours for food. Diacetyl, right, in your custard creams is not an issue. Ingested, it's not a problem. It's when it's inhaled, there may be a problem. He goes on to say, we have no choice with ingredients in traditional cigs. We have a choice with our e-liquid. So where the harm can be substantiated, it's about reducing the harm as much as we possibly can. It depends on volume of inhalation and the specific exposure environment. Vaping levels may be tiny and insignificant, but we're better being informed. Dr. F will hopefully clarify. Vendors should unify and put some money into a fund that do their own testing and share the results amongst themselves and hopefully the public as a community service. Right, so thank you for those comments. Those comments came from Stefan Didak and Midge Dog in chat. And I agree. Midge Dog's comment there about volumes of inhalation and what have you. Yeah, I'm hoping Dr. F's going to clarify that too. Because, I don't know. I'm dependent on these guys to tell me, but I want to know. Because I actually, diacetyl, for example, is used for custardy flavours, but that includes things like vanilla, and I know there's no diacetyl in what I'm vaping here, but I don't know about the other one because I never asked. The comment there from Stefan that vendors should unify and put some money into a fund that will do their own testing and share the results amongst themselves. Yeah, a synergy. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that's up to the vendors, but somehow, and maybe that's the solution, somehow that needs to be done. I'd rather think that probably the solution is to have certification that comes from the manufacturers, and then it's a case of random testing to make sure they're hitting that. That's what happens with every other sort of controlled ingredients, any other products you buy, isn't it? It's the manufacturer that supplies to the retailers has to state what's in it, and then the retailers might, if they have suspicion, do their own QA to make sure they're being supplied what they're paying for. So I don't, it's not a new concept, is it? It's not a new concept to make sure you're getting what you pay for. But it starts with awareness, and that's where I think this is a good thing. And if it gives some naysayer some more ammunition, then I'm afraid that's a consequence we have to deal with. It still needed doing. That's my personal opinion. Now, tonight has flown by. I've just watched the clock tick to 10 o'clock, so I've about run out of time. Probably could have gone on for some time longer on that subject, and I dare say, as Dr. F makes more comments publicly, and I'm sure we'll be doing our best to get him onto VTTV when he's ready to say something. Until then, I say thanks to him, and I say thanks to Dimitri and the crowd over at Vapor Place, because but for getting this organised and getting the money raised and making sure all this could happen. I'm going to say a lot of thank yous tonight. It's a bit like an Oscar reception speech. I want to say a huge thank you to Chris and Sav, who are sitting behind the scenes there, and they've been really sort of helping me out tonight as I've been on my own, making sure that I'm getting the messages from chat and what have you. But I've got to go. I won't be here next week because I'm off on a jolly. But I might pop up sometime shortly after that, I don't know. But there's no Dave's Tackle Box next Sunday as things stand. Keep watching the schedules on vaportrails.tv to see what's happening on Sunday night in its place, if anything. But based on what I know at the moment, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. And thanks for watching. Good night.
sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.